Today, we will be discussing Disney CEO Bob Iger's shocking departure from the Walt Disney Company.
Followed by recent developments on the ongoing 2020 Democratic primary election.
And finally, we're bringing you the latest CSUF and local news. All this and more on today's episode of The Report.
Hello, and welcome to The Report, Cal State Fullerton's premier source for news, views, and information. I'm Jefferson Denham.
I'm Bree Eastlick.
And I'm Ryan Matthey. And before we get started with our first hot topic, we'd like to invite you to be a part of the discussion. Follow us on Twitter at The Report CSUF to check out our polls, questions, and news updates. We also are active on Instagram. Check out our Titan TV Instagram at Titan TV CSUF for behind-the-scenes footage, sneak peeks, and bonus content. We'll start now with some breaking news in the shocking turn of events that Walt Disney Company CEO Bob Iger just announced on Tuesday his retirement from his role, effective immediately. He named chairman of Disney Parks, Experiences, and Products, Bob Chapek, as his replacement. Iger has now assumed the role of executive chairman and will work closely with Chapek as he assumes the role of CEO. Iger will stay with Disney throughout the end of his contract, expiring at the end of 2021. Iger assumed the role of CEO back in 2005 and has since overseen the acquisitions of Pixar Animation Studios, Marvel, Lucasfilms, and most recently, the 21st Century Fox merger. He also oversaw the launch of the very successful Disney Plus, released late last year. Iger will be featured in an interview on CNBC on Tuesday evening, explaining more about his sudden retirement.
After 26 hours of deliberation, the jury has reached a verdict in the closely followed Harvey Weinstein case on Monday. The 67-year-old has been found guilty of committing a criminal sexual act in the first degree involving former Project Runway production assistant Mimi Haley. Additionally, he was also found guilty of rape in the third degree involving former aspiring actress Jessica Mann. Weinstein was acquitted of the 3 other charges against him, including the 2 more serious counts of predatory sexual assault and 1 count of rape in the first degree. The once powerful Hollywood mogul has had 80 women accuse him of sexual assault and harassment, and he faces a sentence of 5 to 29 years in prison. Weinstein is scheduled for sentencing on March the 11th.
Nevada is feeling the burn as Senator Bernie Sanders won the Silver State's Democratic caucus last week. Nevada marks the first diverse state in the nominating contest, following the Iowa caucus and New Hampshire primary earlier this month, adding to his victories in the past 2 elections. This major win is forcing fellow Democratic nominees to better strategize how they plan to convince voters why they should be the Democratic nominee. CNN's Abby Phillip has the story.
We are in this together.
Bernie Sanders' landslide win in Nevada, sending the remaining Democratic candidates into a full-out sprint to slow his momentum. Joe Biden, praying South Carolina and its core base of black voters will be his campaign's lifeline, providing his first victory of the primary season.
Folks, the vote is in your hands, not a joke. You can control this outcome.
The former vice president stressing his goal is to defeat President Trump no matter what, something he believes Sanders cannot do.
I'd like whomever the Democrat is to beat Donald Trump. I'd vote for Mickey Mouse against Donald Trump.
Sure, but do you think he can win?
The answer is I don't think he can beat Donald Trump. He may have all this enthusiasm, and he's got great supporters. I don't disagree with that. But we have to be able to win and win Senate seats as well.
Biden and the other top remaining candidates pitching why they're the perfect alternative to Sanders. Pete Buttigieg, who struggled to connect with Black and Latino voters, could be further highlighted in the upcoming states, warning how a Sanders nomination could hurt Democrats in November.
I respect my friend Senator Sanders, but I also believe that the way we will build the movement to defeat Donald Trump is to call people into our tent, not to call them names online.
Amy Klobuchar's campaign suffering from a lack of diverse support too, but she says not to counter out just yet.
Why would I get out? That's not even a close call for me. And I think why would you have a call for the two women to get out when you have two billionaires in the race.
Elizabeth Warren telling voters to simply check out her accomplishments as senator and compare her record to that of Sanders.
I have rock solid values and I have a record of getting things done. And that translates into what I want to do as president.
Alrighty, now before we get started, like we were talking about earlier, we had a Twitter poll this week, and we wanted to know your opinion. So we asked, with California holding primary elections on March 3rd, which of the four frontrunners for the Democratic Party do you predict winning? And the final results were, after 24 votes, Bernie Sanders was in the lead with 52%, Buttigieg was with 30%, and Biden and Warren were tied with 9%. Now, as of right now, personally, I think our viewers are kind of on the right path, in my opinion, especially after there was a poll that the New York Times took from Monmouth University after the 14 Super Tuesday states. They did a poll within those 14 states, and it said that Bernie Sanders was in the lead with 24%, Biden with 17%, Bloomberg with 13%, Warren with 9%, Buttigieg with 9%, and so on. So what do you guys think? Do you think that they're also on the right path? Do you think differently?
Well, just from the news we're watching, I would have to say that it sounds like the mood of the electorate right now, at least the Democratic electorate. So there's three reasons why I think Bernie's doing pretty well. First of all, there's tremendous enthusiasm on his side. You see it, right, from his supporters. And reason number two, I would say, is related to reason number one, which is he's authentic. He's exactly who he says he is, and he's been this way forever. And then the third reason, I think, is also part of what got Donald Trump elected, and that is just this general discontent, feeling like the government is not for me, it's rigged, it's for the rich and powerful, right? And so I think he's tapping into that. Even though the numbers say that our economy is doing better, there's still an explosion of homelessness. There's still plenty of people who are getting sucked dry by the way healthcare works right now. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that he's doing well.
These are all things that Bernie says that he's going or hopefully will fix if he becomes the president. And I will say the other side of this argument, people are not sure if he was elected as our Democratic candidate that he would actually go all the way to the presidency. People are saying he's too far left. He's not going to be able to get the votes from those swing states that he would need to get the presidency. But I want to say, like, everybody, the same rhetoric was going around when Trump was campaigning back in 2016, where he was winning primary after primary after caucus after caucus. Like, it kept happening, and everyone was saying Trump's not the one. He's not going to lead the Republican Party because he's too far on the right. And look at us now,
I know, right?
Under the Trump presidency. So it's definitely a possibility, and it's really sensationalizing an issue that doesn't need to be had. The issue that we should be talking about is which president candidate is going to get us to the presidency and get this awful person out of office.
Right. So make sure that you are registered to vote. Actually, it's too late to register for the primaries, but do go vote on March 3rd and definitely vote or register to vote in the general election.
Well, now let's switch on to some other news, talking about the honor of the life and celebration that was held for the NBA legend and his daughter, Vanessa Bryant, just this past Monday. Vanessa Bryant has filed a lawsuit against the helicopter operator that has crashed last month. Following the Bryant Memorial that took place yesterday at the Staples Center, Kobe's widow, Vanessa Bryant, has targeted a lawsuit against the helicopter company. The case specifically names pilot Ara Zambayan, citing that he failed to, quote, use ordinary care in piloting the subject aircraft, end quote, and was negligent. Zambayan owned and operated the aircraft that tragically crashed last month, killing himself, Kobe, and Gianna Bryant, and 7 others. The company, known as Island Express Helicopters, is being sued for allegedly allowing pilot Ara Zambayan to fly in poor weather conditions. According to CNN, Zambayan has a record of previous offense, violating flight rules in 2015 for traveling into areas with low visibility. The NTSB is still under investigation of the Calabasas crash, while Island Express has not yet commented on Bryant's lawsuit.
Did you think that you were only allowed to vote in person or by mail? Well, this may all change in the near future. Microsoft recently introduced Election Guard, a voting software designed to replace paper ballots at the voting polls. The new software launch is part of Microsoft's Defending Democracy project. Their first test run was held in Fulton, Wisconsin, during their local election last Tuesday. Voters traded in their pens and cast their votes on digital tablets instead. Election Guard claims to secure votes and tally votes in just minutes. Barbara Pfeiffer, a Fulton voter, raved about the new system, noting, quote, "It was refreshing to see that they're trying to do something new and maybe start a process that's going to be more foolproof and secure," end quote. Only time will tell if we will be seeing more of election guard at the voting polls for later elections. Hey, what could go wrong? Remember Iowa? I'm just saying. So let's talk a little bit about this. I think, first of all, the one thing I'm going to start off with is that I was very surprised to find that we do not have a unified process across the country for voting, for tallying votes. It is a bit of catch as catch can. I was a little shocked by that. So as far as digital voting, I'm just going to say this. I found it, with all the bells and whistles we have with technology and the best intentions, sorry, hackers can still get in there. Now, the good thing about this particular software is they do print out, you get an actual printout, physical printout. So if somebody wants to do a recount, they can. Yay that. And I'm not sure, but I think that's different than the Iowa software. But I'm still nervous. I feel like even with, the hanging chads of the 2000 presidential election and so forth, having something physical, I don't know, it just seems better.
After this, there was a Gallup poll recently, and in it, it said 59% of Americans lack in the integrity of elections. And so this is it's not the right time. It's coming around a very awful time, especially everything that happened in Iowa.
I know.
There's reason to fear that the technology is going to tamper with this election process. But I will say that this test run that was in Fulton, Wisconsin, which has a city of about 3,000 people, right? Very small. They used it for one of their local elections. It went very smoothly. Everything worked out. But that was also 3,000 people. If we're talking on a nationwide level, that's like millions of people, man. That's a little more. So people have reason to fear for this. But I will say Tom Burt, who's the VP of the Customer Security and Trust at Microsoft, he was explaining how this was working with CNN. And basically, the analogy he used is that your vote goes into a vault. This vault is then wrapped around in like kind of a foolproof, hacking device. And if hackers were to go into this or go through the seal, go through the vault and everything, that it will alert the people that, hey, there's someone who has hacked the system. The votes don't necessarily change. It just lets the administrator know, hey, you have been hacked. Surprise. And then from there, they're able to recount. They still have those physical copies as well. So if anything, I feel like this technology is more for the people who's taking these tallies. It's because it's, again, thousands and millions of votes. Like that takes a long time to tally.
Well, the pitch sounds good, but we'll see it in practice.
Yeah, well, they're not planning to really take it out, though, until 2024. So they have a long time to really figure out things and make sure that if it does get hacked, that nothing bad will happen. So how about we turn on to a different story now. Restaurateur, model, and author Barbara Elaine Smith has passed away at age 70 this past weekend. Her husband, Dan Gasby, issued a statement noting that she had been battling Alzheimer's disease and wishes to thank all of her friends and fans who supported Smith during her journey. Over the years, Smith used her sharp skills in multiple industries as a fashion model, actress, broadcast talent, and even a best-selling cookbook author. At age 64, she was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's disease. Following her diagnosis, Smith wanted to bring awareness to the disease and shared her fight against Alzheimer's and advice for loved ones in a book called Collaborations, quote, "Before I Forget," end quote. Smith will be dearly missed by many, and here at the Report, we would just like to give our condolences to the family and friends. She will be dearly missed.
Liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor called out the Trump administration in a scathing dissent this past Friday. In her dissent, Sotomayor criticizes the government for asking the Supreme Court to allow controversial policies to go into effect on the basis of emergency. Further, she accuses her conservative colleagues on the court of being too eager to side with Trump on such requests. The administration supported by is at least two of the conservative justices and has previously argued that emergency requests have become necessary as lower courts increasingly issue broad preliminary injunctions. These cover states that were not affiliated with the original lawsuits injuncted on. Sotomayor's dissent is in response to the court's 5-4 order allowing the government's controversial public charge rule to go into effect. This has made it more difficult for lower income immigrants across the country to obtain legal citizenship statuses. While Sotomayor wrote alone, her opinion suggests tension behind the scenes of the Supreme Court. May I say, I gotta love juice. I love a juicy story. I think this is some juice. I think there's something behind the scenes that we're not going. We have such a divide in our country right now between parties, and this is the highest court in the land is even showing that we're divided even on that level. Trump tweeted recently saying, quote, trying to shame someone into voting her way, end quote. Basically saying like, hey, this is not you just actually voicing your concerns about how we do things now. It's like, what a way to twist this, may I say. Good for you, Trump. You never seem to fail us on that part.
No
but
kidding.
I want to say, what do you guys think of this?
Well, I was going to say that didn't he also say, yeah, how dare you? You know, it's not very respectful, right? And she should recuse herself, is what he said. Both her, and Ginsburg should recuse themselves because of this kind of attitude on the bench. May I remind the president that one of his big heroes on the bench was Antonin Scalia, who used to write this kind of stuff all the time, right? And so she wrote, claiming one emergency after another, the government has recently sought stays in an unprecedented number of cases. It's hard to say what is more troubling, that the government would seek this extraordinary relief seemingly as a matter of course, or that the court would grant it. So it's completely out of the norm, but so is most of this presidency, I would say.
Now, relating to like the public charge rule, I just think it's sad because, I mean, we were talking about this a few weeks ago. People are going to risk their health and all of their public resources because they're in fear of being deported. And we were kind of talking about like, what is Trump's administration and the Republican side, like, what are they thinking and why do they want to take away these public resources? And honestly, like, we didn't really know because like when it comes to health, I mean, if they're sick and they're not going to get help, then it's just going to spread and it's just going to get worse. And so why I think it's not right to take these away from people and they're not going to use them because they're being scared that they're going to be deported.
If you look on like the conservative side of this whole story, right? Like the Trump administration is saying that we wouldn't have to be taking these measures if there weren't so many of these nationwide injunctions going through. But then the question is, why are so many nationwide injunctions going through? And I'm going to say it like very casually. It's because this laws suck. Like they're not good. They're disproportionately affecting people in minority communities and people who are underserved. And we're obviously not going to just let that happen. And so in that term, yeah, it's going to keep happening as well, unless you guys kind of get your laws straight and you understand that you're serving the entire country, not just a certain group of people.
Exactly. Well, you know what? I think of the Supreme Court, I think of ice cream. I don't know about you. We all scream for Newman. Democrat and former Senator Josh Newman is pulling out all of the stops in hopes of winning the 29th Senate district seat. The candidate drove a blue and yellow ice cream truck around Anaheim and passed out free ice cream sandwiches. As locals walked up to grab their treat, they got to spend a few minutes to chat with Newman about current politics. Newman's ice cream truck was definitely an eye catcher around Orange County, but it's not the first of these over-the-top campaigns. Opposing candidates have also created creative campaigns to connect with voters before Super Tuesday next week. Best of luck to all of the candidates in 2020.
To wrap up today's episode, we have a positively touching story for you. This New York teen is helping rescue cats and dogs to get adopted, just one bow tie at a time. Reporter Valerie Castro has the story.
Darius Brown has a passion for animals and a heart of gold.
Good boy.
The Newark teenager is only 13 years old, but already has a booming business. It's called Bows and Paws, where he makes adorable, unique bow ties to help shelter cats and dogs get adopted.
I feel like if they wear my bow tie, it gives them that push or the, dapperness, cuteness that they need to help them find their forever loving home.
So he put his sewing skills to work, a trade his big sister taught him at just 8 years old to help him cope with a fine motor skills delay. Since then, Brown has been sending colorful, stylish, and unique bow ties to shelters across the globe.
When you see a cat in a cage without a collar, without anything soft, it distances you from the animal. And by kind of humanizing them, by dressing them up, we make it more possible for them to find their adoptive home.
Moving forward, Brown hopes to make a career of this. One day, he even plans to open his own animal shelter.
I want to make this into a bow tie. That is the cutest thing ever.
I want a bow tie.
And with that, that's all the time we have for today on The Report. Have a great week, everyone, and stay tuned for more news, views, and information. I'm Jefferson Denham.
I'm Bree Eastlick.
And I'm Ryan Matthew. Stay fresh, Fullerton.